Hi, welcome to Sideninehomestead. Today I'm going to show you how to make this delicious, tender, amazing chuck roast using only a chuck roast, salt, and water. So if you want to learn how to do it, stick around. So typically prior to us going to the carnivore lifestyle, I used to do a lot of roasts. Crock pot was one of my favorite things to use, and I did various vegetables with it. So always onions, carrots, potatoes, things like that. Then I kind of went more towards the low carb version. So if you haven't tried it and you are following more of like a keto or low carb diet, you can substitute radishes for your potatoes, especially if you're going to put them in a crock pot. It works phenomenal. You will never know. I've tricked Sean many a times, and I sit there and wait and watch, and I'm like, what do you think? What do you think? Was it good? Did it taste like anything? And eventually he'll tell me, yeah, I think it was a little bit different, but usually he couldn't. So it's a great substitute. So if you want to do that, you can certainly do that. But what I'm going to do today is just simple. All you need is the chuck roast, water, and salt. So let's get started. So here I have a chuck roast. This is almost a 4-pound chuck roast, so pretty good size. This would be really enough for probably like a family of 4 for dinner, maybe 5, depending on how old some of the family members are. I have my Dutch oven. This is an enameled cast iron Dutch oven. You can use a cast iron skillet if you have one that's deep enough to fit whatever size roast you're going to use. I also have some Wagyu beef tallow. I have my salt and pepper, and that's all you need. So the first step is you want to brown your roast. So I'm going to put a little bit of the tallow in the bottom, and I'm going to salt the roast, and then we're going to get it over to the stove and we'll start to brown it. All right, no real measurements with the beef tallow, just enough to kind of, once it melts, it'll kind of coat the bottom of the pan. That's all I want. I just don't want the beef to stick to the bottom of the pan. All right, let's get this over to the stove. So I'm gonna put this on like a medium-high heat because we want this pan to be pretty hot. You're gonna probably have a lot of splattering and smoke and everything while you brown it, but you wanna brown it quickly because you don't wanna cook the meat this way. We're gonna cook the meat in the oven. All right, so I've opened up the chuck roast. One of the first things you wanna do, really with any cut of meat, is to kind of pat it dry. Packaging generally, some of the liquid will settle out of the meat, so you just want to kind of pat it dry a little bit so that your salt and pepper or whatever you're putting on your meat will form a nice crust to it. So I'm going to put some salt on here. You can be pretty generous with this salt. This is a really big cut of meat, almost 4 pounds, so it'll take a lot of salt to really, for you to even notice it. Now this time I did choose a chuck roast. It is my favorite type of roast to use. It's usually what I've used with pot roast or anything along those lines. I like that it kind of shreds down. It's really nice in soups and stews and chili. There are other roasts out there, but I think chuck has the best marbling. So if you're looking for a really tender roast, chuck roast is your best bet. All right, so I'm gonna go check and see if my tallow is warm, and then we will get this starting to brown. All right, so I can see on the bottom of the pan, there's a little bit of bubbles that are starting, so I think we are good to go. I have this, so on our stove, these go up to 10. I have it a little over 6. I'm gonna put it like 7. It's the way that they have their things done, so let's get this roast in here. And just kind of press it down because you want to make sure that the whole surface is touching the bottom of the pan. All right, this has been going about 5 minutes. I'm going to flip it over so you can see. It's a little tricky to do, so use my fingers. Well, I could have gone a couple more minutes, but that's okay. We'll flip it back again. All right, so this is about ready to start flipping again, but I want to preheat my oven first. So we're going to preheat the oven to 350 degrees. So we'll let that work its magic while I work on flipping this. I got a nice good sear on it. You can see the nice brown little bits on the part, plus there's little brown bits that are at the bottom, which will come in handy when we go to put it in the oven. Alright, so both of the larger sides are both brown, so I'm going to start working on the sides to get those brown. So forgive me, it might get a little loud. You can see all the goodness that's down there, the little bits that are on the bottom. That'll come into play when we go to put it in the oven, so I'll talk more about that then. You just want to get a nice sear on all the edges if we can. Alright, so I just turned my burner off. I'm going to let this cool for just a minute or two, and then I'm going to add some water. So I'm going to add about 3 cups. We'll see kind of where that comes up. That's all I'm going to add. You know, typically when I would do a pot roast or something like that, I would use beef broth or chicken broth, whatever kind of stock that I had. But this time I'm just going to keep it really simple and just use water, because of all those bits that are on the bottom, that's all going to cook in. It's going to kind of make its own broth in there. So I'm just kind of letting that tallow cool down, because I don't want everything to splash up at me when I pour the water in. Okay, so the sizzling has kind of died down a little bit. It's not quite as noisy as it was. This is actually only a 2-cup measure, but I have it filled completely to the brim, so it's probably close to 3 cups in there. So I'm just gonna kind of pour it along the edges. I don't know. Yeah, I'll just add it all. That's good. It doesn't have to be completely submerged. So what we're going to do when we put this in the oven, we're going to cover it, but we don't want it to be tightly covered. So if like a family member, or like I know our kids growing up hated crock pot meals, and the reason they hated it was because everything was kind of mushy. So basically that is because the crock pot kind of seals everything in, all that steam's in there, so you're kind of steaming everything, which makes it really soft. And if you're doing that all day, you know, that's why the veggies are all mushy, your meat kind of falls apart. Not as bad for the meat, but a lot of times the vegetables aren't as appealing. So when we put the lid on this, I am going to leave it a little bit cracked so some of that steam can escape, but most of it will still stay in there. But you do want to let some of it out, so that's going to kind of braise the meat, which is what the cooking technique when you have the water in with the meat, it's called braising. So we're going to do that. I'm going to get my lid and we will get it in the oven. All right, folks, I'm going in. It is really heavy. So I just want to make sure it's cracked a little bit, so there's a little bit of a space. I have my lid kind of at an angle. That's perfect. We'll leave it like that. No comments on my dirty oven. Okay, that's it. So that'll take about 3 hours, maybe a little bit longer. We'll check it at about 2.5 and see what it looks like, and then we'll see if it's ready. Let's take a look. There she is in all her glory. Wow, that looks amazing. And to think that I just used water and salt in there. All right, let's try to take this out of here without it falling completely apart. All right, so I have my chuck roast out of the Dutch oven. It's extremely hot, but I'm gonna start to kind of slice it and pull it apart, and so you can kind of get an idea of what it'll look like. So like I said before, chuck roast is like a very tender type of roast. It generally just kind of falls apart. So let me slice it a little bit. You can serve this by itself. You can serve it if you are not carnivore. You can serve it with some veggies. You can do pretty much whatever you want with it. It's so versatile. I'm just gonna slice a few pieces. Oh man, it smells so good. And there's still, from the water that I put in there, there's a really nice broth in there that you can use as almost like an au jus sauce that you can put over the meat when you eat it, almost like a gravy. My cameraman's drooling. All right, I'm gonna, hey. I'm gonna just grab a piece. Almost cuts like brisket. All right, let's see. This is the test. That's so good. Probably could use a little extra salt when you serve it. And also, feel free to put any seasonings on it that you want. I just used salt today, a little bit of pepper. But you can put anything on it. The fact that it was browned first is why it looks so nice on the edges. You have these nice crusts on it. Really kept a nice appearance to it compared to if you just kind of did that without browning it. It would have kind of almost like a grayish appearance to it and really wouldn't look appealing. Probably would taste okay, but highly recommend doing a nice sear on it first. And there's the other nice thing with a brisket or with a chuck roast is there's really good fat with it. So if you're carnivore and you want your good animal fats, everything's broken down really nice. It's going to be really tender. It's going to give a nice mouthfeel to it. It's not going to have the real gummy, chewy fat to it, like say you may get in some different steak cuts. This is perfect.